Parallax. You are now tuned into the Parallax Effect. It's not the message, it's the messenger. What up, Ryan? It's time. Parallax. Oatmeal's better than no meal. Guess who's back to make mountains out of molehills? If this don't move you, I bet my folks will. This beat's smooth, but trust me, there ain't no chill. Ask Ryan, if I'm lying, I'm flying. It's the sculpture of all aspects of the culture. Parallax. The People's Podcast is back, laying it down flat for you wherever you at. Your job, or your car, or your jog, or your flight. Loads of archives with no ending in sight. Hitting on any topic, long as it ain't no nonsense. You can see the others for the drama and the gossip. Word to Brett, best there ever was, recognize it. Never secondary, my eyes stay on the pocket. Parallax. And if you feeling the vibes, give us 5 stars. Oh, and follow and subscribe. Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you just passed the test. This is the Parallax Effect. Come on, Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you're here, that's mad respect. Welcome to the Parallax Effect. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Parallax Effect, where perspective matters. I am your host, Ryan Lavelle, with another great show for you today. We got a magical show. And before I get into our guest today, let me just let you guys know you can follow us on Twitter at Parallax Effects. That's Parallax Effects with an S at the end. And on Instagram, Parallax Effect Media. Once again, that's Parallax Effect Media. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. It'll be in the show description. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us. And I want to just get right into it. My guest today, phenomenal individual, phenomenal talent. You can catch him and we'll talk about a lot of his career here and a lot of his accomplishments as well, too. But I really want to welcome Kardenni to the Parallax Effect. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Love your intro. That was really nice.
Shout out to Mega Ran for linking that up for me. I really appreciate him for doing that. We'll have him on the show in the near future as well, too. But yeah, thanks so much for joining today. I wanted to just kind of let the folks know how we met. You were featured at my Aunt Marsha's New Year / anniversary. My Aunt Marsha and Uncle Russell, who will probably be on the show sometime soon. So shout out to them. Their 41st anniversary and New Year's extravaganza down in Orlando, Florida. How did that connection happen?
I was just asked to come and perform at an event, and I showed up, and you guys were there, and you guys were ready to have a good time, and that's always it's one of my anxieties for like going out as a performer. Is that is it going to connect? Am I going to land? Are they going to like me? All those tropes. And you guys were ready to have fun, and I had so much fun. It was a great way to spend New Year's.
You took care of that right off the bat. And the first time I noticed you're spinning a card in thin air. You're using the force basically. And I'm looking at you, and you're just kind of you're just cool as a cucumber. You got your hand going above and under to show everybody there's no wire in there. That card is just spinning and it's just kind of going. And I'm like, okay, I want to sit down and talk to this guy, but I know he's got to, work his way around the room. I don't want to hog all of his time because I had just months before finished a David Blaine. It's not a master class, but it's like one of those studio classes that he put on, teaching you how to do card tricks and flourishes. So I was like, just excited to get your opinion. Like, I want to talk to him. I'm in the group now, I know. And when we sat down and a lot of the different tricks you were showing us, it's like, I thought like, okay, I can look and pay attention. I had literally no idea. I mean, we were chilling with myself. Obviously you, my lady Jasmine. You literally stuck a marker through her long sleeve jacket. There was no hole in there, but the marker definitely went through the jacket. Then you pulled it out of her hair, and I'm sitting like, as I am sitting with this computer, like right in your face, and it is all like, I'm telling you guys, it was super just impressive. Like I was blown away, man.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about being a magician, is that no matter what situation I find myself in, language barrier and culture, it all just kind of goes away, and it's just you and another human being. And then there's this moment that is inexplicable to one or two of those people, and it gives you this paradigm shift, this moment that maybe the world really isn't what we think it is, and I think that is a really fun way to engage with people and to, have a conversation that begins that leads to now us talking like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how you said that because that kind of encompasses what the show is all about. I mean, it's about perspective. It's about, sharing opinions, but it's also about what you said, just shifting the narrative, having that paradigm shift and
Mhm.
having people just, just think outside themselves. And for you, I just felt that not only were you an unbelievable talent, but you were like super approachable. You worked. I've never been in a setting like that where there's someone, especially a magician that's just going around and you're feeling the room and you're like, all right, this might work for this person. This goes for that. How do you do a lot of parties like that? Because you seem pretty comfortable in that setting.
Yeah, I mean, when you've done something for 25 years or so, you kind of run into almost every situation you could possibly run into. And it doesn't even really matter what level you're playing at, whether you're playing at my level or David Blaine's level or David Copperfield or Penn and Teller's level. After a certain amount of time, you've kind of experienced it all. And you take those experiences and those trials and tribulations and successes and failures, and they become a tool in your toolbox. So many times, as a young magician, I started performing at restaurants at tableside, and so that's what kind of got me comfortable in engaging with people and going up to random strangers and just starting a conversation and then continuing it and ending it with magic. It's not an easy thing to do, and there's, to this day, 25 years later, there's still tons of obstacles you have to overcome. Because every time you go in a room, it's different people with different histories, with different lives. And I have to manage my way into that some sort of way. And the best way to do that is just to remember they're human beings like I am. And that's what makes it easier.
And let's go back to that beginning, your nascence as a young burgeoning magician. Like, when did you find out, like, I'm good at this? This is something that I'm going to pursue, because we know, and I can tell people who've whatever done, become experts at their trade, that it takes time. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
time. I think there's an Outliers book by Malcolm Gladwell. I think that 10,000 hours,
Hmm.
to really, really master. When did you
Yeah.
find out, hey, I'm going for this. I'm really good at this?
It was in high school. It was on my wrestling team. One of my wrestling mates, Nate, he had did a magic trick for a group of us at one of the tournaments and just blew me away. And he wouldn't tell anybody how any of it worked. And then eventually he confessed that there was a magic shop at the mall across the street from our high school. I say across the street, about half a mile or so.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic shop was just like this little kiosk in the mall, like this little stand. And I went in there trying to learn some magic, and through that kind of got involved with the local group of magicians. And one day just asked for a summer job and eventually convinced them that I was worthy of being a person that could work there. And then it moved locations from one place in the mall to another, and they redecorated. It was like an old, like piercing pagoda kind of jewelry place that they made look like a gypsy booth.
Mm.
And the newspaper came by and they said, "Hey, where's the owner?" I was like, "I'm the only one here right now. What can I do for you?" And they said, "Well, we just need to take a picture of somebody. We're doing a little blurb about you guys in the paper." I was like, "All right, what do you need?" They said, "Do something fancy with the cards." So I just shot the cards from one hand to the other. One of the fanciest thing I knew at the time, 15 years old. And a few weeks later, that was in the newspaper with my picture and a little blurb about the shop. And someone had called the shop saying, "We want that kid at our kid's birthday party." And so the boss said, "Hey, I got a job for you. They asked for you. You got to do it." and I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't own a suit, and I didn't like none of that. So it all had to be pieced together. I went and did this show, got paid $50 to hang out with a bunch of kids for an hour. Waited on their little stoop for my mom to come pick me up, and she came and picked me up, and she said, "How was it?" I think I can do this. And it was just like that moment, it all clicked. It was like,
Mm.
I just, 15 years old. I was in Portland, Oregon at the time, and $50 hanging out an hour with kids. I was like, that's more than anyone in my family makes for an hour's worth of work. And it just clicked right away. I just knew that this is the thing to pursue right now, because if I pursue it right now, it's going to pay off for me tenfold in the future.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it was just that. And then I became a hustler after that. It was like just trying to find that next gig. It was like an addiction. It's like I need to do that again. And then you get it again like 4 months later or whatever. And it's like, oh, I got to do that again. So it's just, how can I do that more often, over and over and over and over again? And you run into that addiction and that struggle, I think, throughout your entire career, no matter
Right.
what field of entertainment you're in, whether you're an actor, a DJ, a magician, a comedian, you're trying to do that again.
And at 15 years old, like, what was your marketing strategy, or how did you go about finding more? I mean, maybe you're not thinking about it like that at 15, but what was your kind of method to promote yourself and find more work?
Just copying the models that were already out there. When you're starting off, you're copying, you're mimicking, for lack of a better word, you're ripping off. You're finding something that you connect with, something that you like, and then you discover yourself out and through that. And it was really the restaurants is where it was at, and that was, this was 1998, 1999, so turn of the century.
Turn of the century.
Right. But at that time, restaurant magic was a pretty popular thing. It's not so popular anymore. You'll still run into it where you have a tableside magician, but it seemed like every major city in every single state had at least 3 or 4 workers, depending on how big that market was. And Portland at that time was not a large market, probably about 1 million people. And so you have, 8 to 10 professional magicians in a population of 1 million people. You kind of have to make your way through that kind of hierarchy and play those politics a little bit and establish yourself in that. And restaurant magic was where that was at. I performed at family restaurants, chains. Applebee's was a place that I performed at for quite a few years. And you just build relationships through that and learn through that. And one of my mentors used to say, I just go out there and I try to suck as much as I can, and I think he was joking to a certain degree, but at a certain degree, he was also being honest. You have to go out, and fail in order to know what success is, so get it out of the way as soon as you can, go out and suck as much as possible. So once you've kind of done that, all the suck is kind of gone for the most part, and you can now focus on all the good things that came out of that.
And the fear goes away, I'm guessing, too, probably. I mean, I think that's
Not
really
really.
good. No? Okay.
No. The fear, I think it's always there. It always stays. If it's not there, it's very much, how they say, if you're not nervous before you go out, before you perform, and something's wrong. Like, the fear is always there. Like, was this my last job? Am I going to get hired again? You're only as good as your last job. So, some nights it's not a good night, and you're like, oh, I hope everyone forgets that night, So the fear never really goes away. What does come is experience and learning how to manage that fear.
Gotcha.
That, hey,
makes sense.
that fear is temporary, that it is not everlasting, and I can work my way through this, because more than likely it's not the first time I've worked through fear of any kind. And if you've been doing it like magic for 25 years, oh God, is this fair going to hire me? Is this company going to go for the price that we bid? I'd really like to do it. And, then there's all this political stuff. You don't want to undercut yourself. You don't want to undercut other people. And there's just so many different pieces. So fear is always there. It sticks around. You just learn how to manage it better over the years.
Right. And I think that could be comforting to some folks, maybe, trying to get started, or some folks who are thinking, I'm the only one who has this fear and everybody else is just going after it, and I don't want to get, caught up or left behind or anything like that. So I
Right.
think that it's comforting for me to know, trying to develop this show. So, just to get the failures out early, right? And the
Yeah,
successes
and
shall
just
come.
really embrace them, because they're not gonna go away. They're gonna keep coming, and they're there at every single level. Joe Rogan's a big advocate of that kind of stuff. I like listening to him speak about these kinds of things. I really relate to how he talks about the hustle and the thing that it takes to actually practice something and become good at it. Some people are naturals at certain things, and some people are unnatural at certain things, and other things can be learned, and some people can learn other things. It's just so diverse of how it all goes. But the failures are there, embrace them, and I like to transmutate them. I like to turn them into positives. So, if something negative happens to me, it's like, oh man, I just lost this job, or I had this 8-year contract, and now I don't have this 8-year contract anymore. And what's going to happen now? It's like, I don't have, right? And then there's the fear. But what do I have? Well, now I have more time to do the thing that I was complaining that I didn't have enough time to do.
Right.
And so now there's the silver lining. And so now I try to attach myself to that and use that as momentum. With some things it's easier to do than others, and some things it moves quicker than others. But for the most part, I attach myself to the success or to the silver lining of the failure, because I know it's around the corner. Especially if I'm trying something new. I was trying something new at a show a few weeks ago, where I was like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do this new routine in my show. And the first time it went great. The second time it went great. The third and the fourth time it utterly failed. Like
Wow.
completely failed on me, and the audience is just kind of like looking at me, and it's like, and I'm working on a new opening. And so that when you fail on your opener, you're
Where do you go from there?
right. So you
Yeah.
have to like really quickly renegotiate and be like, hey guys, like I really am good. Hold on a sec, and then you really have to hit them hard the next time, which is fine, and I knew that was going to happen, and I was surprised it didn't happen the first time. I was surprised it didn't happen the second or third time, but when it happened the fourth or fifth time, I was like, oh, here it is. Great. Here it is. Finally, it's caught up to me. Here's the failure, and now I have to deal with this. And I had to deal with it 2 times in a row. When I thought I'd fixed my problem wasn't fixed. And then going into it the next time, I'd just gone in with 2 failures, and I only had 1 more chance to do it for the rest of the night. It was a place where I was doing 5 shows in a day. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was like that last one, it hit, and it was good. It was like, okay, it hit, and now I can take a break from it. I can reassess now in private and really go through in detail of all the things that did go wrong and all the things that did go right. And where do I make my adjustment, And then if I can't figure it out all on my own, or even just for fun, call a friend of mine and we come and work out the problem together.
Right.
It's like, hey, I had these problems, I had this. And then at the end of the day, you always just kind of go back to the beginning and go with what essentially already worked, but you just hadn't refined it yet because it was your 5th time doing it. You can't expect it to just go well right away when you're doing something new. And so I embrace that failure. I wait for it. I anticipate it in order to know that it's going to be painful. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable. But in the end, I will learn something from it, and it's going to be 100-fold better.
And then you go ahead and transmutate it, as you said, right? That was the word that you used.
Yeah, find that silver lining.
Find it, man. That's phenomenal. I think that
if
that
you can't
we can
find
all
it, have somebody else find it for you, and then that maybe helps you give you perspective.
And speaking of some of those friends or mentors, or who are some of those earlier influences in your career, especially coming up as a teen, doing the restaurant shows, finding the gigs, the parties? Were there any outside influences or people who kind of helped you along the way?
I mean, there was a very supportive community in Portland, Oregon, of magicians that whatever they saw in me, they nurtured that and gave me a foundation, and it wasn't just one person. I can't give the credit all to one person. some people contributed more than others, but it takes a village, and when my ego got in my way or whatever, there was people around me to hold up the mirror, which is, there's that failure, there's the fear, right? It comes in when you get to actually see yourself for real. When somebody says, hey, you're out of line, it's never a good feeling. But again, like in the long run and later on down the line, it's like those people are the ones that you go, now I know what they were talking about. Now I know, because you see it. You see either the growth in yourself, or you see what you did in someone else, either one of your own peers or someone that is your junior. Rarely your senior, but usually your junior or your peer. You'll see do the thing that was pointed out to you. It's like, oh, that's what that person was talking about. And then you have that clarity, and then you have that revelation of, oh, now I know how to fix that problem. And you may even recognize that you still have that problem. We tend to point out and not like the things in others that we don't like in ourselves, right? It's like, I hate it when people don't signal. It's like, I hate it when I don't use my turn signal when I'm driving,
That
it's
man
like,
or woman in the mirror philosophy, right?
Right. Yeah.
And how does it, when you're going through those moments, I may not ask for a specific example unless you feel like giving it. When you're going through those moments, like what's that like in your head? You're like, what are they talking about? Like, that's not even me. Like, how does that feel in the moment?
Early on, when I was a young magician, a kid, it was exactly what you just said. That's not me. I'm not like that. I don't have an ego. I'm in check of my ego, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't. I was living kind of in a delusional place, and not like in a bad way, but just I didn't have perspective. Everything was right here, and I needed to step back and see the bigger picture. And now when those things approach me, I have a completely different way of handling and dealing with it. First I have to go, okay, this is what this person is saying, and this is their perspective, this is how they feel, and this is what their understanding is. And then what is my understanding of it? And then where is that middle ground? I try to find that middle ground to kind of help me process it and kind of lean me into almost like surrendering to whatever the criticism is, and then really wearing the criticism, like, like my heart on my sleeve. There it is. I'm a jerk. I'm a jerk. Someone told me I'm a jerk, so I'm a jerk, and wear it and understand it, and to see like, oh yeah, what I did there, that is being a jerk. I see that now, and not to the point where I'm like beating myself up, like, oh, you're such a jerk, you're a jerk person. I just know that, okay, like I have this tendency, and how do I truncate that? How do I stop it? How do I stop it in its tracks? And that is the thing that you get with wisdom. You're able to kind of step back and let people express themselves and take their critiques with a grain of salt. And sometimes people are right. We, the person being critiqued, aren't always right, and that's a hard thing. That's where the ego comes in the way.
Right.
Don't you know who I am? Don't you know the experience I have? I've been doing this for 25 years, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you're right to do that. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes the other person is right. And sometimes you're both right. And that's a weird situation to be in, where it's like, that you're right, but you also know the other person is right. And so that's where you're in that weird middle ground.
Who's more right?
Right. And it's not about who's more right. It's just, it's different. And that's the thing where the compromising comes in. It's like, you know what? Maybe I can be a jerk or a unsympathetic person, but you know what? That's something I can work on. And when I can catch myself in it. And you're right. That is something that I should work on. Yeah. But also I should embrace that those are my tendencies, and I should be aware of that. Maybe I should warn people about it or whatever. These are just examples out of the ether or whatever.
Right. And I think there's a fine line too, because on the road to humility, I think we can let in a lot of our worst moments in our, proverbial car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've actually struggled with that a lot. I always held myself to my worst moments. And just recently, I'm really trying to apply some of the principles exactly like you explained to try to bring myself out of that, but still realize, okay, what triggers me to be at my worst moment, or what can I do to preference this situation? And sometimes I remember, I was thinking while you were speaking of a conversation I was having years and years ago with one of my best friends, who just straight up told me. At the time, I was very angry. There were some things that were happening in my life, and he just told me, like, "You're being an asshole, dude," like straight up. And I didn't want to hear it at that time. That made me even more inflammatory,
Yeah.
right? But I always replay that conversation in my head, and I always thank him for saying that, because he might have just been, being upfront or being real or whatever. But for me, he was being honest, and
Right.
I needed to hear it. So that just, like, it just triggered that moment for me when you were speaking on that. And I think that's really important, to be able to discern between the two. Don't beat yourself up, but don't think that nobody can tell you that anything is going on, because there's always something.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine one time come see one of my shows. It was probably like 15 years ago. I was working on a cruise ship, and he come to the theater, watch my show, and at the end he goes, "Yeah," he's like, "Good job." He's like, "Well, the only thing is like you're talking at people." And I was like, "What?" I didn't understand what he was talking about. I was like, "Talking at people?" And he's like, "Yeah, like you're talking at people. You're not talking to them." I was like, "Well, I'm doing my thing. I'm like doing my monologues." Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, but you should talk to them." And I was like, "Bro, I have no idea what you're talking about." I was just like, we're going in circles right now. Like I'm doing that, like I'm talking to people. He's like, "Yeah, but you're talking at them." I was like, "All right, whatever." And that was his advice. That was his critique. And it always just kind of stuck with me. And I just didn't really ever understand it until maybe 6 years later or so, when I took an acting class, my first acting class. Maybe it was my second or third acting class, but we'd done these techniques and these certain things about connecting with people and talking to people and what that meant and how that felt. And the minute I understood it and felt it, I went, "Oh, that's what he was talking about all these years. That's what he was talking about. I'm supposed to be doing this and not that. Oh, shit." And it's like, then
Yeah.
you get down yourself, you're like, "I wasted all that time talking at people. I could have been talking to them." And then
Right.
it's like, no, now's the time. Implement immediately. And next show I had, it was like, and at that time I was fortunate that I was on a massive contract where I was performing on regular basis multiple times a week. And so it was like I had the opportunity right away to start implementing these things I was learning in the acting class to become a better magician, which is why I started acting, because I wanted to be a better magician. And I knew that acting was the road into that.
Yeah. What
And
role
then,
does acting play in that? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that's
yeah,
an important aspect of, like, it's not just brass tactics, right? Like, you need to, like you said, talk to people, or be
yeah.
in that role. Like, what role does your acting? How did becoming and taking those acting classes make you a better magician?
Well, it taught me how to connect with people, right? It taught me how to not make it about myself and how to make it about my partner, right? So in acting, what you try to do in a scene, whether you're on theater or in film, um, you don't want to make it about you. That's kind of almost like like 90s soap opera acting. You're like, oh my God, and the heavy eye rolls and the big gestures, you know. But if you make it about your partner, if you make it about the other person, you really don't move that much, right? Like right now, I'm making it about you, because it's like you have this question, and I want to supply you with this answer, and and at the end of the day, it's really not about you or I. It's about your audience. It's listening, right? So we're having a conversation, and they're getting to eavesdrop in on this. But the acting taught me how to be present in the moment with a person, and if I can do that with a person, I can do that with a group of people, right? And so that's always what it was. Or very early on, I read a book called The Art of Seduction, and then followed up by a book called The Game. And I used to work at a budget rent-a-car when I was really young, in between gigs and stuff like that. And the people watch me like reading these books like on my break and in between things. And they're like, "Why are you reading The Art of Seduction?" It's like, well, they're supposed to teach you how to seduce women or whatever, seduce. I was like, I'm trying to learn how to seduce people, right? But not in a sense for like to date them or whatever, to have one night stands, but for the sense of I want to seduce them into me, into my idea, into my realm. And what are these techniques that these people are using to seduce people, and which ones are applicable into my performance? Right. So then it's like, then you got to go on R&D, research and development, right? You got to read all this stuff. You got to figure all these things out. And that takes time and years and whatnot. If you're a person doing it all on their own, you don't have a team of people, they can go, "Hey, go learn this for me. You go learn that for me," and then come back with notes. I don't have the luxury of that. I do most of what I do all on my own.
Yeah. So
So it takes,
your rise and your ascension into your profession is a lot. Self-made, no,
Mhm.
hey man, come on over
Yeah,
here and let's learn how to do this. You had to seek and find, survive
right,
in advance, I guess,
right,
on your own, right?
right. And so with acting, just taught me to be present. There was the real path for acting for me was a quote from a magician from the 1800s, Jean Robert Houdin. He was a French inventor and clockmaker, and he used his skills with these tiny gears and inventions that he was creating to create amazing magic tricks way ahead of their time. And he was quoted, I later found out misquoted actually, saying that the magician is an actor playing the part of a magician, right? We all know magic isn't a real thing. But when we watch the magician on stage or next to our table at the restaurant or at our family reunion or New Year's Eve party, and we understand that we need to suspend some disbelief. We know that he doesn't or she doesn't have supernatural powers, but that they're doing trickery and that they're doing illusions and that they're messing with our perception and our own psychology, playing our own psychology against us for the purpose of entertainment. And to just, again, like I said earlier, to give just a different perspective that the world may not be what you think it is.
Right. And I kind of want to get into that reality of what magic is and what magic isn't. I just like to go along for the ride, right? And I think nowadays that you have folks who you can look stuff up on, the internet, and you can like I did, join a class.
Hmm.
And I'm only performing like, I don't even want to call them grade 1. They're like 0.5 grade tricks, right? Like
Right,
I'll do like, okay, I write the card number and suit on a piece of paper before the person even touches the card, and they end up drawing the card, right? And then instead of just like, oh man, like it's like, do it again. Let me see how you did that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it again. I have to recharge my little magic meter, like my little special
right,
magic meter. Like you don't just do specials on video games. You got to build them up, you wait a
right,
while. I'll come
right.
back and do it later, just to kind of like, because it requires a lot of setup and stuff like that. But how do you deal with those type of, do you run into those type of individuals? How do you navigate around that type of spectator?
Yeah, I think all of that comes with experience. There's certain rules of magic that aren't like written rules, but they're kind of unspoken rules that just kind of get repeated every once in a while. Don't reveal the trick, right? The reason magic works is that it is a secret and that it is the element of surprise. If you knew it was going to happen, it would be way less magical and maybe not magical at all. You don't want to repeat the trick because the first time is the magic and the second time is the lesson. The first time you've been surprised, the second time you're trying to figure it out now because that's what the brain does. It solves problems. And so you have a lot of these kind of unspoken rules like that. And so if you are going to repeat a trick, then you have to use a different method because they are now looking for what you're going to do. And being the magician, you probably know exactly what they're going to look for because you've studied magic and you know what you would look for. And you also know the information that is available to the public and what the public perception of magic is. And so you start to play with that. And then that's where you mess with their psychology, where you're like, "Oh, you want me to do it again?" It's like, "All right, here, pick a card." Now they think the same thing's going to happen, but you're not doing the same thing. They think you're placating, but now you're doing something completely different, right? So that's one way to kind of handle that situation. But because, and the reason that that works is like you're not letting them dictate the show, right? You're the orchestrator.
Right.
You're the one
Okay.
that dictates how it goes,
I got
right?
you.
You're in control of this. And and you have to have the confidence to assert that control, to be assertive enough, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, right?
Yeah.
His thing is his thing is being calm and assertive, you know, no, and that's it, right? And people will respect that, if you give it, if you're assertive enough with it. But you can easily just avoid any kind of confrontation or anything of that nature just by curating your performance in a way that keeps you in control and that gives them a beginning, a middle, and an end. So they have a resolution to it at the end where they go, "Wow, man!" And then they're overwhelmed, or they just want to walk away and think about it, or they're intrigued and excited, and now they still either want more, and it's like, well, this is all you get now. Come on, man, come on, come on, come on. Nah, man, I gotta go and I gotta entertain the rest of the people. I appreciate that you're enthusiastic and excited about it, but I'm here to do a job, and I can't just entertain only you. So there's many roads out of it, and it just comes again with experience.
Know when to get in, know when to get out, know when to walk away, and then know when to come
Yeah,
back, I guess.
yeah. No one to hold them, no one to fold them.
Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And speaking of, like, poker or Texas Hold'em, do your friends avoid playing cards with you? Do you get to enjoy the occasional game of spades or whatever you play?
I rarely, part of the reason being, like, people don't really kind of just do that for just fun anymore. Everybody, people, like, if people are playing card games or poker, like, they're like, oh man, yeah, I'm putting, $500 on this game or $20 a game, but you're not just playing to play. When I was younger, yeah, tons of card games and things like that. But the minute you're a magician, people don't really want to play card games with you.
Yeah, I can
during
imagine.
leisure time. Like, even if you don't cheat, like, it's always in the back of their mind.
If they lose, you cheated.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the magician won again. Go figure. And sometimes it's a joke. Sometimes, like, it gets a little carried away, and it's like literally, I'm not cheating. Like, it's just it's just what it is.
Right.
Like, you helped him win. It's like, what?
Just takes all the fun out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I'm working, they want to see the tricks and they want to be a part of it, and they want to catch the cheat. But in private, like, people generally don't want to play cards. I've been invited to a few poker games and I've played in a few poker games, but I'm also very reluctant. Like, I don't want to win because I feel like they think that no matter how much the game is in control, like, somewhere in the back of their mind, they're going to think, that magician probably cheated,
Well, if you're ever in the LA area when we're having one of our poker parties, they are buy-in ones, so they take it a little seriously. But you're always invited, man. It'd be fantastic.
Appreciate that.
To have
I
you.
played poker with a bunch of people from Cirque du Soleil in Vegas one time. They had one of those house parties and buy-in and everything. And I was like, guys, I usually don't play because I'm a magician. Like, oh, no, we're all performers, we're all entertainers, And the guy that was hosting it was a fan of magic, and he had a big magic collection and books and things like that. And so it made me feel a bit more comfortable, a little bit more like, oh yeah, let's do that. So
yeah, being of the same ilk, and
Right,
everybody's nice and relaxed. That's good. That's good.
And I'm horrible at those games, so like my $20 or $40 was gone so quick.
Oh, and speaking of acting, all I do is impersonate World Series of Poker. I'm over here trying to do my best Phil Ivey. I'm looking and looking back and looking and trying to do the same movement, and it doesn't work, man. I just lose every time. But yeah, Vegas. So what are your favorite venues? Any favorite shows that kind of come to the top of your mind that you've done?
Earlier this year, I got to perform in Baltimore at the M&T Bank Stadium. They had a big private party there for a company that was like merging with as a partner with the stadium, and they were having just a big holiday party / like, hey, we're doing this thing together now. And so that was a really kind of fun experience. I performed in a few different environments of like stadiums, not like in the bowl or anything like that. Just like a section where they kind of corridor off a certain part of the stadium, but there was like 5,000 people there. I mean, it was massive. There was a huge amount of people just going through. So I did like this whole like show for everybody, like in the midst of this dance floor. And then just kind of strolled around and just hung out with people and did magic for them. And kind of, when it's happening in their hands, people are just so much more amazed. They're just like, you're not far away, you're right here, like this is a thing. Whoa.
That was exactly my experience that we touched on at the beginning of the show. It was like
Yeah.
I'm telling you, everything was just crisp. It was like the execution, the timing, the visual. I was like, there's a hole in her shirt. I gotta go fix it. I gotta go sew it up after this party is over. Where is it at? It's not there anymore. I have no idea.
And then I
This is
was
kind of
just Oh, I'm sorry. I
no,
was
go ahead.
in Miami last month for almost an entire month, 25-day run for the Miami-Dade Youth Fair. And I was playing the main stage there, and that was uh, like a total of like 14 shows or something that I did in that 25-day span on the stage, and then kind of strolled around on some of the other days and just did close-up magic for people. But that was something that was really fun and exciting that happened recently as well. It was Miami-Dade Youth Fair. If you've ever had a chance to go to that fair, it's one of the greatest fairs. It's not like muddy or like like cows running around everywhere and things like that you see at some of the more rural fairs. But this is more of like a theme park environment. Everything's very paved. There's just so much stuff going on there. It's a very massive fairground.
Oh wow! And what time of year did you say it usually happens?
This happens in March into April. It's like a whole 25-day run that they do down there. It's really cool.
I have to look that one up. We've never been to Miami yet, so hopefully that'll be if that's around that time of the year. I'm gonna make sure I go down there for sure. That sounds like a really good
Yeah.
time. From my Los Angeles folks, have you ever done the Magic Castle out here in Hollywood?
I visited. I haven't performed at the castle. It's they have a massive roster of people, and it always updates and changes, and you have to go through a process to go in there. And I haven't even tried to really contact them yet. It's not really. It's something that I'll definitely want to do in the future. I've performed at other different magic venues. There's a place in Chicago called the Chicago Magic Lounge. That's a really, really kind of beautiful place, like a mini kind of magic castle in a sense. It's hidden. It looks like it's a laundromat, and then when you go in there and you ring the bell, the washers and dryers open up, and you go into this luxurious venue
Like
that's really, really
speakeasy
amazing.
style? Yeah.
Yeah, but like you walk into like a theater that seats like a
Wow.
hundred people, like, and then there's like different. They have a bar area where there's a bar magician. People come and do close up magic for you. Then you have a featured act and a headliner act, and then there's a bonus if you paid VIP. They take you into another room in the back called the 654 Club, and they do some another little close up magic show for you in there. So tons of magicians there, and that was a really great fun experience. And then here in the Orlando area is a place called the Great Magic Hall that I frequent. So that's a nice place to kind of go, and that's local. It's in my backyard. I can go there and perform, and they'll say, "Hey, can you come in on these days?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come in. I'm available," and it's a good place to even try out new things and new materials.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you
Yeah.
when you make it to the Magic Castle, I want to be there, man. So let
Oh,
me know.
okay.
I'll buy
All right.
myself a ticket. We'll come on down and we'll represent, man, because that's gonna be you're gonna blow the lid off of that joint for sure. Something I noticed, I was kind of trying to do a little bit of certain, do a little bit, search a little bit of history on you to try to have an educated conversation. Cobra Kai you were in. That's one of our favorite shows.
Yes.
What was that experience? What were some of your other acting experiences that you enjoyed?
I It's really fun. I'm a creative person. It's fun to get onto a set and to um, film is very different in television and theater because it's a collaboration. Like you just kind of, especially in film and TV, you just kind of show up, you do your job, and then you leave, and then everything else happens before and after you've been there. So you really have very little control over what the end result is. In theater, you have a little bit more control. It's a little bit more of an actor's medium, um, but you're working really hard for that, in those rehearsals. And I've done a little bit of theater. I haven't done a full play. I've done a short play, and then you work on a lot of different theater scenes and read a lot of theater pieces and entire plays and different acting classes that you do and things like that. and you have to read the whole thing. You can't just read the scene. Like if you're given a scene from a play and you don't read the whole play, like the instructor is not going to be happy with you, because part of the work is you got to know the material like completely. But Cobra Kai was really fun. I had a little one-liner on there, and it was very interesting because for a time I had some food sensitivities where I was basically a vegan that I had to eat meat because otherwise I was just going to just wither away. I was losing too much weight. But to get over these food sensitivities I was a vegan that ate meat. And so everywhere I went with my friends, it was always these dietary things. I'd ask, do you have this and non-dairy? And do you have blah, blah, blah? It was always this stuff. And so when this role came through of this person like ordering this strange vegan meal, it was like, oh, I know how to do that, and I just like did the audition and then sent off the tape. I didn't even have to go anywhere. And then I got this thing that was like, you booked it. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, awesome. And so I went to Atlanta and I shot the scene and hung out with the cast and crew a little bit. And then, then you go home and then whatever. Then you go on with your life, magic shows and other auditions and things like that. And acting is so competitive. It's like they come in, like I'll get 100 auditions in a year for every single TV show and movie that you see comes out, like literally like. And they're not always like huge, substantial parts. Most of them are like, you go in for like a line or two and then that's your day, you get paid to do that. But, out of the 100, you book one, it's like, it's so competitive because it has very little to do with your talent and your look and your resume. It has everything to do with all of those things. It's just not one of those aspects. It's all of those aspects. And sometimes it's your schedule. Sometimes it's your look. Sometimes I don't like people that have the name Dennis or Kardenni or whatever. Like, that's stupid. Don't hire that guy. Or I heard something about him. Don't hire. Or my ex-wife cheated on me with a guy of that name. I don't want to hire anybody that has that name. You just never know what the reasons are. One time there was a story going around from one of my teachers that said she was in the room when they were making a decision on some actors, and she was helping with the casting. And the director and the producers and everybody was arguing over this actress and these two actresses. And one of the actresses that they were arguing over was this instructor's friend. And so like she kind of had like the insight on this, and they were like, oh, no, this and that. Look at this resume. And they argued for hours. And at the end of it, they were like, you know what? Forget it. Just flip a coin. Heads this one, tails that one. Wow. Like sometimes it's just not in your control at all. Sometimes it's just a flip of a coin that you got the role. Sometimes you're just tired of looking at people and they're just like, all right, whoever comes in next, just give it to them. Just give it to that person. And you just might be that person, and you might be the worst actor in the world, but you just got it, and you got lucky, and this is your break to like prove yourself or whatever it is, But I forget why I say all that, but it's Cobra Kai, and it was a great experience. I had a really fun time. I got an opportunity to hang out with Billy, the guy that plays Johnny, during our lunch and stuff like that, and chat. And so that was kind of cool. So you get to kind of meet all these people, and you have to really get over being starstruck. Like you can't be starstruck around these people or be a fanboy because it's unattractive. You're at work, it's not just because it's Hollywood and it's acting. Like you're there, you have to sign in, you have to clock. They go, all right, go over here, get your costume, go over there, get your hair done, go over there, get your makeup done. Do you know your lines? Do you know your lines? And it's like, I remember my first time doing something it was like the biggest thing I booked. It was MacGyver, the reboot of MacGyver on CBS. And they were looking for a poker dealer with like a Russian accent or something. So I do this audition, and I put on my little tuxedo, and I do the tape, and I send off the audition. And sure enough, I book this thing. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, oh my, this is CBS. This is my first network thing. Like, I got this whole scene that I got to do. And there's like, I had like 3 or 4 lines or something like that. So it was like, it's a big deal for me. I get there, and, they show me to where I'm supposed to be. And the main actors are in the same room as me in the break room, in the green room and stuff. And I'm like, we're doing this in this hotel at the very top floor in Atlanta. And it was just like, there's a lot of stuff. You walk into a hotel suite, like 2 floors of the hotel all belongs to the production. It's just like, and it's it's incredible. It's huge.
Right.
And you go there and you sit down. They're like, all right, let's do a rehearsal. You do the rehearsal, and I'm just trying to get the pace of everything. I'm sitting in my thing. There's the poker table. We got the extras around me and everything. And then, the main guy walks in and then they're like, blah, 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 blah. And they're going through the scene. And then as I'm like taking it in, I'm trying to like figure out the timing and the rhythm of the scene. So I know right when to come in. I realize it's my turn to come in.
Oh,
It's my turn to do the line.
We're
and
here.
So
We're
like,
now.
right. And I'm like, oh, the Sabine. And they're like, all right, from the top. All right, let's do it again. It's like, your line. I'm like, yeah, I know my line. I'm good. It's like, oh shit, I just screwed this up, I think, it's like, and so you go, and then it's like, boom, you got to be on point. It's not like what you see behind the scenes of Cobra Kai, where 1 and 2 on the bill is talking with the director and they're working it out. I'm number 70 on the bill. I'm number 120 on the bill. Like, they're not coming over to me talking about motivation. They're going, do you know your line? Okay, say your line. Action. Like that's how it is.
That's it.
You go there, you say your line, and GTFO, like, get out of the way. There was one production I was on where they were behind. They forgot to pick me up from my trailer to bring me to the rehearsal. So then they're like, hey, they're ready for you. And then I get there and they're like, they're ready to shoot. I don't know where to stand. I don't know when I'm coming in. Oh, there's the camera. Okay. And then like one of the PAs in this whole room, it's all really crowded. And there's there's A-list actors around me, television actors all over the place, And like, luckily I know the terminology. Luckily I know, like, hey, where's my 1? Where's my 2? What am I doing here? What am I doing there? Right. And they're filling me in real quick. And then you see this guy like trying to clean this wall or paint this wall or whatever they're trying to do for the thing. And you just hear this voice from the back, was probably the showrunner or one of the producers. He goes, take the fucking shot. And like, it's like, oh my God, like, oh, this is so tense right now. And it was just like, there was so many problems on this production, and it was like, I'm just there to go and say this one line and get out of there, And so like, I got to get out. It's tight spots. It's all about what's in this little frame, what's all in there, And so you run into a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they're all just tools for the toolbox,
Yeah.
It sounds like it could. Yeah.
Sounds like it could be a pretty stressful environment if you weren't already prepared, with your, like you said earlier, that, whether failure's coming or to deal with the fear. I mean, you sound like you just, I know what to do when I get in here, even if I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. I'll learn as fast as I can to make sure I know what to do. It's a tough business. Everyone thinks that Hollywood movie making, TV making is like this fun thing. It is very fun. Don't get me wrong. It is so much fun, but there's so much stress involved.
It's
so
not
much
all
anxiety,
glitz
especially
and
at
glamour.
the level that I play at, like, I'm just coming in to be like, yo, can I use the copier? And then I leave, and it's like, just to do that can be like very stressful, depending on who you're working with. And there's other independent projects I've worked on and projects I've produced myself, where you have a little bit more control and, you share the stress together. Yeah. It's not just like, am I going to lose this job? Like, if I don't say the line right,
And what are some of those personal projects, or what else is coming on down the pipeline for you? What's next?
I'm heading to Eureka, California for there's a little county fair that I'm performing at out there in the end of June. I want to say June 21st to the 25th or something like that. I can't remember the name. I think it's called the Redwoods Fair or something like that. So I'm going to be out there for a few days doing that. And I'll come back home to Florida for a while, do some local gigs here. And I'm always auditioning for TV shows and things. And those things I can't talk about whether if I'm booking them or
understood.
Even if it's something that's self-produced, there's just so many always hands involved and things that everything just kind of has to remain just low key until pieces are in place where they're supposed to be, And then I'll also be heading end of July. I'll be in at the Montana State Fair in Great Falls, Montana. It's a cute little town. And then right after that, I'll be heading to the Nashville area. There's another fair out there called the Williamson County Fair out in Franklin, just outside of Nashville. It's a really, really fun little fair. And I've been doing shows and performing there for the last 3 years, I think I've been there. So it's really an honor when you get to get repeats from these fairs. And the fairs are nice, just like a band, they go to the festivals and things like that in between all their other shows and stuff. It's a great way to connect to people, great way to get out there and get a bit of exposure and to get paid to do what you love. That's at the end of the day what it comes down to. It's a job, but at least
the fairs, I think they're a good like mixture of like getting intimate with the crowd, but also getting a crowd,
Yes, exactly. They're ready for entertainment. And, depending on what fair you go to, it can also be a challenge, because you're dealing with different people, different culture, different, from state to state, people are different. So you, again, have to just go down to we're human beings. And that's what this is about. It's not about me. It's about human beings connecting and having a good time. And as long as I stay in that realm, I seem to have really good success with the audiences.
Is there like a, I guess for lack of a better explanation, like a white whale of a venue or an event, or have you already had that? Is there anything?
I kind of already do what it is that I've like searched out to do. For me, it's just always, how can I get better at it? Like I love performing on stage. I love performing in theaters. And every time I have an opportunity to get on stage in theaters, and especially like if I'm performing in a community or regional theater, where I have a lot more control over how I want to tell the story. Like at a fair, I got to be more streamlined. I got to be a little more appeasing to the audience versus like if I'm selling the tickets or the theater selling tickets for something more theatrical, something more intimate, or something more with a through line or a narrative, then that's really where I get to kind of sink my teeth in and really connect with people on a scale of complex ideas, as complex as you can for a magic show, and that, and still relate to people. At the end of the day, whatever story I'm telling to them that's accompanying my magic needs to relate to them. They have to have some way into my world.
And I'm all about the storytelling, and I think that's why I really gravitated towards your style of magic and just your overall professionalism in general, like like I said, the execution, and everything, how it all flowed together. Thank you so much. The question that I meant to get out, I want to make it a final question, as like a, something to grab everybody as we get ready to wrap up here. What was the first magic trick that you learned?
Oh man, the first one I learned, it was a series of things that I learned. So when my wrestling mate Nate showed us all those tricks at the wrestling tournament, I went back and basically bought those tricks that he showed everybody at this magic shop, like a trick deck of cards, these little a trick deck of cards called a Svengali deck. He was doing these things with these little foamy red balls called sponge balls. And then I had this little, like a little rod, like a little stick that had multiple colors on the sides, and it would change colors and move around and do all these really beautiful sleight of hand illusions. And so that was really my introduction into the tricks that I learned that were early on. And those are the tricks that a lot of early magicians will start with and gravitate towards. And build from there, because they each kind of have a foundation, certain principles that you want to learn and get under your belt. There's like 8 different principles of magic. You make something like appear, you can make something disappear, you can transpose something, from one place to another, teleport it in another sense. You can change something. You can animate something. You can make it move or bring it to life. And you can levitate something, or you can mess with people's minds, with their perception, by giving them a thought and then telling them what the thought is that you've given them, or taking a thought from them and telling them the thought that you've taken from them. So you have all these different principles, and all those principles have like a few tricks that are the foundation of that principle that everyone kind of learns, that you're like, okay, this teaches the basic concepts of levitation. This teaches the basic concepts of how to make a small object disappear or reappear, or this teaches the concept of changing the color or shape of something, So you kind of learn through those things. And so it was the sponge balls, the Svengali deck, something called a hot rod or a fantastic that were the things that really got me. And one of them, the fantastic, I wore out. Like the colors had faded off of the little stick, and I brought it back to the shop, and I told the guy, I was like, "Is this normal?" And he looked at it, and he was like, "I've never seen this before." He's like, "What did you do?" I was like, "I've been showing it to everybody. I've been doing it for everyone as much as I can. I've been practicing it like nobody's business." And he's like, "Good job." He's like, "That's what it takes to be a magician. Here's a brand new one," and he just gave me a new one for free.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
'Cause he respected the work ethic. So
yeah. And that was advice that you passed down to me when I was trying to show you some of my little flourishes. Like, it's not working out for me. Just keep practicing, man. Commercial breaks, every moment. So all you young magician enthusiasts out there, all you up and comers, go get a Svengali deck. Go get yourself the sponge balls, and go get yourself the stick. What was it called one more time?
A hot rod or a fantastic.
Hot rod. Go get yourself one of those. Practice. And I think what we definitely learned today was to not only embrace the failure, but expect it. Don't get disencouraged. Don't get slighted by it. Overcome it. Transmutate it. Right?
That's right.
I like that. So yes, Kardenni, thank you so much for being on the Parallax Effect. This was awesome. Just had a really great time talking to you, getting to know you a little bit better. And really look forward to some of your upcoming work, especially when you come out to LA, man. Please, we want to come out and support you 100%. How do the guests and how do the listeners connect with you on Twitter, Instagram? How do they reach you?
You can reach me at Kardenni, Kardenni on Instagram. That's where I'm most active on. Same with Twitter at Kardenni, Kardenni. And if you just search Kardenni in Google, you'll find me. I'm on YouTube as well. I got some stuff up there and different variety of content that I try to trickle out on as much of a regular basis as I can. It's a little bit easier when I'm on the road to put things out for people to see, because there's content to be made because I'm on the road.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have all your links in the show description as well too. Cool. For us on the Parallax Effect here, we are on Twitter. Once again, that's Parallax Effects. Once again, that's Parallax Effects with an S. On Instagram, Parallax Effect Media, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me know how I did today, how I can get better. Kardenni obviously did awesome, came in and killed it. So, give you your flowers, man. Always appreciate your time. Like I said, look forward to, your next work, your next projects, everything you got going from the acting side, from the magician side, all of the above, man. Thank you. We're going to give you one of these on the way out here.
Thank you.
This has been the Parallax Effect. I'm your host, Ryan Lavelle. On behalf of myself and Kardenni, thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.